Hey, I hope you guys are staying cool today. So, we've got a 2005 Mazda Tribute. I think this is the same thing as the Ford Escape. It's got the 3-liter V6 in it, and the AC is not working. Well, specifically, he said that it works intermittently. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I just took the gauges up, and it does have pressure. So, he's got a lot of pressure. He did say he tried to add some refrigerant using one of those right there. This car's got about 187,000 miles on it, so we're going to go through this and we're going to see if we can figure out what the problem is. Unfortunately, I've already got the scan tool hooked up, and the only thing that this car has available, and it's not the limit of the scan tool, it is, here, hold on. It's not a limit of the scan tool, it's a limit of the car. In 2005, Ford, all the AC data is in the PCM. It does not have a HVAC control module, and there's no bidirectional test that we can do, but there is some data. So let's get in here and let's start this up to start with, and let's see what the data can tell us. So right now the AC switch is on, and you can see up here on the scan tool, AC pressure switch is showing to be open, and it says okay. Air conditioning switch is on. Air conditioning clutch allowed, yes. The engine coolant's about 167, 168 degrees. Engine cooling fan is currently on low, and I just want to see if there's going to be any activity. I'm going to push the AC switch off, and air conditioning clutch is shown to be off. I'm going to push the switch on, and it's saying air conditioning clutch is on. So at this point, the clutch should be on. AC pressure switch is showing open, and it says okay. I mean, if that's the low pressure switch, this has got I think it's got another pressure switch. I think it's got a high pressure switch also. Air conditioning compressor cycling switch on. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of information really that we're getting out of the scan tool. And like I said, it's not a limit of the scan tool, that's a limit of the car itself. Let's just go back, and I want to go back into actuation test. We can control the fan. Torque converter. Nothing for the AC compressor. It doesn't look like. We'll do special functions just to see. Power balance, rotor compression. So yeah, nothing. So I've already had it running. The compressor I have not seen kick on at all. So let me go ahead and shut this thing off. But like I said, I've never seen the clutch come on. So let's take a look at the diagram. And I don't know if this is going to come through for you guys or not. Here's the clutch, AC clutch solenoid. Of course, it's grounded. Comes up here, goes through the AC clutch relay. When that relay is energized, it pulls power off of this bus right here from this fuse. Looks like 14, kind of hard for me to see even with glasses. It says hot at all times. So if we pull this relay out, we should have power on at least one pin all the time. And I'm assuming when I turn the key on, the PCM power relay will power up and put power on another pin, which is both those pins are 1 and 3. And then what I could do is jumper. I think that's 3 and 5, and that technically should put power down here on the clutch. Oh, here's the, okay, we got a dual pressure switch. And we got the AC clutch cycling pressure switch. And whenever we follow this up, there's the AC on switch. That was the button I was pushing. It shows a little LED in there. That is going through the selector switch, and it pulls power off of this fuse here. Whenever you turn the switch on, it puts power up here to the push button switch. When you push that button, it goes through this diode, comes down here. So with the car off, key on, AC button pushed in, we should have power sitting right here at the pressure switch. If the pressure switch is working, we should have power on this side also. So we should have power on both sides of this. Now if this switch is working, let's see, yeah, we're going to go through there, that set of contacts, go to pin 2, which is here. And pin 2 goes here to the powertrain control module. Take a look at that again. Pin 2, yeah, okay. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward circuit for a compressor. So let's go over and see what we got at this pressure switch and that relay. Oh, and Ford's great wisdom. Here's the little diagram for the relay. And I might take a picture of this and put it up there so you guys will have this, because Ford only labels these on the car R3, R4, R5, R7, and so on. And it doesn't tell you which relay or which fuse is what. But on this particular fuse panel, R10 right here is the AC clutch relay. So R10 is what we're after. So let's go over here and first I think we're going to take a look at that pressure switch. And I'm trying to beat you can see the sun is moving in this direction. I'm trying to figure this out before the sun starts beating me down too much. One thing I hate is working in the sun. So just real quick, this is the low pressure switch. There's 2 wires. I'm not sure which wire is which. I'm just going to shove a T-pin down into that one. I'm going to take my test light. I'm going to go to the negative side of the battery. Verify that the test light was working by touching the positive side. Let me turn the key on. And we do have power on this side. Let's check this side. And we have power on that side. So the low pressure switch is where it needs to be right now in order to complete the circuit. Now let's take a look at this relay, which is going to be right here in this little panel. And Ford, just R6, R8, R7, doesn't tell you nothing. But per that print that I've got, this should be the AC relay right here. So let's see if we can get him out of there. And you can generally look at one of these relays a lot of times, and whichever pins are the fatter pins or contacts, that's your load carrying set of contacts. These will be the trigger contacts, like coming from the computer. These are the 2 that's going to energize the relay. These are the 2 that's going to carry the load. So one of these should have solid power. The other one is the one that's going down to the compressor. So again, we got the test light here. One of these should have power. So hopefully that's coming through. We do have power there. So what I'm going to do at this point, okay, so I've got this little relay deal that I rigged up about 40 years ago. Just happens to have the right contacts on it. Connectors, whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to pin into this. I'm going to listen to see if I can hear the compressor clutch kick in. And I don't hear nothing. So what I want to do now is go to that other I'm going to leave that jumpered. There's that other pressure switch. There's the, yeah. This right here is that other pressure switch. I'm going to check. I don't want to crawl under the car if I don't have to. So I'm going to check everything above the car that I can. But it looks like I might be crawling under the car. At this point, maybe the clutch is bad, or maybe the wire going down to the clutch is bad. So let me pull the print up for this, the pinouts, so I can tell which one of these are coming from the relay. All right, guys, I didn't actually have to go inside and pull anything up. Right here, this is 4 and 1, pins 4 and 1, and on the connector itself, when you turn it over, it actually has what pins are what. Hopefully that's coming through. I've got a T-pin sticking in 1, back probed in 1, and 1 back probed in 4. Might be dark for you, but you'll have to trust me. So I'm going to plug this back in, and then theoretically I should be able to take my test light, and we should have power on both these, and we do. So that verifies that that switch is in the position that it needs to be in to go through the relay, through that pressure, the low pressure switch or the cycling switch, and it should be, we should have power down at the connector for the compressor. So that's the next step to this. I'm going to jack this up, see what it's going to take to get access to the compressor connector. We'll see if we got power at the connector. If we do, then they're going to need a either a clutch or a compressor. Usually you replace the compressor, especially when it's got this amount of miles on it. Anyway, let me get this thing jacked up. All right, guys, I got it jacked up. I've got the AC on. And the connector, this thing is, it's got a major oil leak. And when I was under here, I tapped the front of the hub here, and it snapped shut. So that tells me either the coil is weak on the clutch, or with this thing having 187,000 miles, there could be an excessive gap between the hub and the coil clutch assembly, and it's too far away for it to be able to close it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off, and the book tells you to measure the gap. The gap should be 14 to 29 thousandths. We're going to measure that, see where we're at, and there's what they call spacers or bushings or something. I can't remember what they called them. And that's how you adjust that gap. So we're going to see where the gap is. If the gap is within limits, that means the clutch itself is just weak. But if it's, if it's 35 or 40 thousandths gap, then we're going to tighten that gap up and see if that takes care of it. Now, something else you can do is, even if the coil is weak, if this gap is closer to, say, 30 thousandths, which is on the wider end of the range, I may still tighten it up and get it closer to that 14 thousandths, and that might be good enough to where they can go, at least this summer, maybe next summer, who knows, maybe till they get rid of this car, and it may work fine. So anyway, let me do that. I'm going to get my cordless ratchet, take this bolt out, and we're going to see if we can get this off. And just to show you what I mean, so right now you can see that is not turning. I'm going to go engage the compressor or the AC, and we'll see if it automatically engages. If it doesn't, I'm just going to put a little pressure on it. It should be on. See if it engaged. Okay, it did not. So if you take a screwdriver or something, just barely touch it, that little extra help pushing it up against the clutch sometimes will help it engage. That's a sign that either the clutch is weak or the gap, the space is too far. All right, guys, so before I take this bolt out, I've got a 30 thousandths feeler gauge here. Hopefully you can see that 30 thousandths. And we can get that feeler gauge in there. So the max spec is 29 thousandths. 30 thousandths is just right there. The closest is 14 thousandths. So I think if we can adjust this to get that gap, to close that gap up and get it closer to 14 thousandths, I think we'll have success allowing this to engage and disengage the way it should. So I've got my ratchet here. Let's see if we can zip this bolt up. Talks about a special tool to hold this, but even if you had to turn the vehicle on, engage the AC, push on this so that the magnet, you know, so that the coil is holding it up there, you could probably hold it that way. All right, it broke loose. We got that. So let's see here. A little hot. Let me put my gloves on. I'm going to use my feeler gauge and stick in here. Trying to block it out of there. Okay. And there is, see this little washer? That's a spacer. I'm going to measure the thickness of this. Let's go measure it real quick. All right, guys. Got me some calipers here. Okay, so this is actually 30 thousandths. I'd like to, that might be cutting it kind of close. If I left that out, that might be cutting it a little bit close. So let me think on this and see what I want to do. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. Now, you could probably leave this out when you tighten this up. As long as it wasn't smashed up against the hub of the clutch and basically rubbing or staying engaged all the time, you'd be just fine. I'm not even going to try that. I could try that first and might be able to get away with it. I've got a lathe, so I'm going to machine out a 15 thousandths thick washer, and I'm going to do it that way. Now, you could use a grinder, you could use a file, you could maybe put some sandpaper on a flat surface and rub this and thin this washer down to where you could suck it in just a little bit more. And you might not need to suck it in, but maybe another 5 or 10 thousandths. But since I've got a lathe, I have the option of actually machining out a washer. So I'm going to see, you know, that's pretty thin, 15 thousandths, but we're going to see if we can do that. So this thing is about 431 thousandths in diameter, and it's a little over 1/4 inch inner diameter. So let me go over there and knock this out real quick. I just snipped that little burr off with a pair of flush cutters. Smooth it out. And let's see how close we got. 17 thousandths. That's good enough. All right, let's go put this together and see what happens. And you can tell the kind of wear that this thing's got. I mean, it definitely has a lot of wear on it. Along with the face of this hub here. But if you can get away with not having to replace anything, why not go for it? First thing I'm going to do, make sure my bolt, if my measurements was correct, I just want to make sure the bolt will go in there. This should drop down in here, and then we'll slide this right up here. All right, so I stuck the bolt in there to hold the washer, and then I slid this whole shebang on. So let me tighten this up and we'll measure the gap. Then we'll check it. Now the nice thing that I just saw was that this still spins free and it's not rubbing the clutch. Okay, definitely tighter, so let's 26, 19, 18, we'll try an 18. 18 does go in. Let's try it, see what happens. Okay, looks like everything is on. And clutch did engage by itself. Pressures are coming down. I'm gonna get my thermometer. We'll see how cold this is getting. Like I say, it might actually be a little overcharged because he tried to put some in himself using this, you know, the little cheap do-it-yourself hose. But I'm gonna see. It definitely feels better than what I'm feeling here in the heat. Let me see how cold we're getting, and we'll call this done. All right, guys, so currently we got 53 degrees and it's dropping. Our pressures look good. Got about 30 there on the low side. Got about a little over 225 there on the high side. Clutch is engaged. And everything's looking good. So the space on the clutch itself was the whole problem. So, and that's pretty common on a lot of different vehicles. So if you're having a similar problem and you've got a lot of miles, what's going on here? You've got a lot of miles on your vehicle, that's one thing you may want to check is the gap on your clutch, because once it starts getting too far away, the magnetic field isn't strong enough to pull it in. But once you tighten that gap up, then once it pulls it in and locks it up, then you're fine. Anyway, we're done. Again, this was a 2005 Mazda Tribute, but it's the same thing as a Ford Escape of the same year. Got the V6 in it, but whether it's the 4-cylinder or many other different vehicles, they suffer from the same thing. Anyway, you guys take care. We'll see you.